Imraisa Malchios, Miskaros Elu Melu, Tzafel Raglov Shamashiach. The Medrash says that if you see nations, if you see countries warring against each other, prepare for the footsteps of Mashiach. Never in our lifetimes have we seen countries embroiled in war. The first time since World War II, such a major conflict in Europe, Russia and Ukraine. Prepare for the footsteps of Mashiach? Ask Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman that throughout the history of the world there's been many wars, the 7-Year War, the French Revolutionary War, the Crimean War, Alexander the Great. In modern era, you have World War I, World War II, the Cold War, the War on Terror. So where was Mashiach? Mashiach didn't come. What happened to the Medrash? You see, countries at war. Mashiach is so close. Answers Rav Steinman that any time there's a war amongst countries like we're seeing unfold before our eyes right now, it means that it's ripe for Mashiach. And he could very well come, but we squander the opportunity. We sabotage Mashiach's arrival. Let's look at what's going on in the world right now. Russia, not simple. Russia is the largest country in the world. 17 million square kilometers. 1.8 times the size of China. Russia spans 11 time zones and is housed on 2 continents, Europe and Asia. There's nothing like Russia. No country in the world like Russia. The prophet Ezekiel, Yecheskel Hanavi, when he speaks about the ultimate war, Gog and Magog, he says the country that will wage war against the world will be Yarkisei Sophon, the country in the furthermost north. Russia is the largest and most populous country all the way north. Much of it lies on the Arctic Circle. The Vilna Gaon has a tradition. And this is cited by Rav Chaim Volozhin, by Rav Chaim Brisk. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Yisrael of Rizhin has the same tradition from his grandfather, Rabbi Avram HaMalach, that when Russia asserts itself, when Russia looks for expansionism and global domination, it means that Mashiach is super close. Russia wants to take over. There's another prophecy, and that is that when Russia annexes or invades Crimea, Mashiach, it's ripe for Mashiach. That already happened in 2014. There's an archangel in the heavens, a malach called Duviel. The Talmud in Tractate Yuma, page 77, speaks about it as the guardian angel of the nation of Persia. The Vilna Gaon says that it's a very evil angel. The Klippa, that is bad. Russia represents the Duviel. Duviel, the etymology of Duviel is bear. What is the symbol of Russia? It is the bear. Russia was always known as the big, brutal, clumsy bear. But here's the issue. Because Duviel is the archangel of Paras, of Persia. So what does Vilna Gaon mean? That there's a connection between Russia and Duviel, the bear. The Talmud says that Persia epitomizes the ravenous, loitering bear. Look at Iran. Iran is the number one sponsor of terrorism in the entire world today. It has numerous proxies. It has Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria. It has Hamas in Gaza. It has the Houthis in Yemen. Did you know that Iran gives $6 billion to Syria? $700 million annually to Hezbollah. $100 million annually to the Palestinian causes, amongst them Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Iran is super diabolical, pernicious, and dangerous. Vehement. Iran and Russia. Who got together now? None other than Russia and Iran. They disbanded. They decided to forsake the American dollar, and now it's the rial and the ruble. No more American dollar. They dispensed with it. But there's yet another piece to the puzzle. Because there's another prophecy. And that is, when Russia goes to Constantinople, we know Mashiach is close. Constantinople represents Turkey, the capital, the seat of the Islamic Empire, of the Ottoman Empire, today known as Istanbul. The Targum Yonos of Zealand and the Parshas Balak speaks about Turkey, Constantinople, Istanbul as the sign for Mashiach. There's a triumvirate: Russia, Iran, and Turkey. Russia representing Gog, Dubiel, Persia, Iran representing the ancient Persian Empire that the Gemara speaks about as the last reigning country in the world, perhaps. And Turkey representing the Islamic nation. Yishmael. And what do you know? Just 2 weeks ago, Putin finally leaves Russia. The first time since the war with Ukraine. And where does he go to visit? He doesn't go to Williamsburg or Flatbush. He doesn't even go to Tom's River. He doesn't go to Miami. Not even to Orlando. Where does Putin go? He goes to Iran to meet with Khamenei and with Erdogan from Turkey. A trilateral meeting, 3 of them together. When you see the nations fighting with one another, Tzafel l'raglav shel Mashiach, the time is ripe. The time is now. But it's up to us. How are we going to respond? What are we going to do? What decision will we make? Will we work on ourselves? This Tisha B'Av, will we bring Mashiach? How? Chazal tell us that all tragedy and suffering, you know how many people are in Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital dying of cancer? How many people are wallowing in crisis, off the derech, How many people lost their parnasa? How many people are waiting to get married? So many tzaras. There's one answer. You could ask in your Shmoneh Esrei, you could say, well, Hashem, please, bring a cure to this illness and get that person married and help this person find income. But there's one greater panacea. There's one greater answer. You just ask Hashem, please Hashem, bring the redemption. Let Mashiach come. Mashiach could solve all the problems if he wanted to. And Hashem says back to us, it's all your fault. Because you don't get along with your fellow Jew. You don't care enough. You're fighting. You're blaming. You're labeling. I'll tell you an amazing story. There was a fundraiser of a major organization that found out that his organization was getting an anonymous donation every month from a certain benefactor. So he calls up the donors fund and he says, who's the benefactor? And they say, well, he doesn't want to be known. Totally anonymous. See, he's so intrigued. He almost feels like beleaguered, like I have to know. Who's supporting their institution? Who's giving the money? So he probes and pries. And he finally discovers that it's somebody that davens with him every single morning at Minyan. But he can't know who it is. You know what happened? Every day he went to Minyan, he started greeting anyone in shul because he didn't know who that secret benefactor is. He started treating everybody with respect and kindness. Just in case. If he gives somebody like half a smile instead of a full smile, and maybe the benefactor, he may be insulted and he may stop his check to the organization. He doesn't want to get on anybody's nerves. It may affect the donation. She said, and maybe anybody here, I have to be nice to everybody because you never know who it is. Every person we encounter is a potential donation to us, is God's child. And God says you treat that person with respect and dignity. I'm putting money in your bank account. Yeah, not in TD Bank, not in Chase. You're not getting it Zelle, you're not getting it Quick Pay. You're getting it up there. Priceless. Inestimable value. Next time you go to shul, say hello to everybody because that person may just need that hello, that smile. And you're going to get a donation. There was a fellow who always looked down and askance upon a certain person. It's not my schnit. It's not from my community. And very condescending. One day, this person's son ate a nut. Harmless. Just a cashew. It was on Sukkot. And they were away for a Chalamoy trip. And the kid started choking on the cashew. Instead of going down the esophagus, it went down the trachea. It went down the windpipe instead of the food pipe. And the kid was choking, the kid was turning. And the father called Hatzalah. Hatzalah man came, worked on the kid, and eventually saved the kid's life. The Hatzalah member that came was the man who the father always looked down upon. He's not good enough. Became his hero. Became the greatest, most important person in his life because it saved his only son. You never know in life who the hero will be. Every Jew has to be treated like a hero. Because in God's eyes, in Hashem's eyes, that person is a hero. When we treat others with compassion and respect, we get it back. Multiplied. I'll tell you an amazing story about a man whose name was Yehuda Newman. World War I. He was working in a POW camp, prison of war camp in Poland, and there were German POWs. He was Jewish, he was religious, he was in a very compromised position. He was there to supervise the POWs, and there was one German Gentile POW who was caught stealing bread, and he was court-martialed, and he was told that he's now going to be shot to death. Yehuda Newman was the one that was appointed to bring him into the forest, accompanied by 2 Polish officers, and to shoot the German to death. So as they're walking to the forest, the German POW, the guy, the Gentile, turns to Yehuda Newman and he says, "Bist du a Yid?" Are you Jewish? And Yehuda Newman was a little shaken. He says, "Ja, ich bin a Yid. I'm Jewish." "Bist du a Yid?" Jewish? Yeah. The Gentile turns to Yehuda Newman, the German, and he says, "Hot Rachmanis, ich bin a Tate." He knew the word Rachmanis, even though that's not German, it's Yiddish, even though there are similarities. Hot Rachmanis, have compassion. I'm a father, have children. Don't shoot me. They go into the forest. Yehuda Newman tells the 2 officers that accompany him, says, "Listen, don't worry, I got this. I know how to do it. You could go back. I'm okay." They retreat. They leave. Yehuda Newman says to the German, "Take off your shirt." Takes off his shirt. "Hold it up." Holds it up. Takes his pistol, his gun, shoots. There are holes now in the shirt. He walks over to the German, he takes his rifle and injures the German's skin, makes it bleed, takes the shirt, soaks it in the blood, and tells the German, "Geh! Go! Run away!" And the German turns to Yehuda Newman, the man that saves his life. He says, "Wo sei Newman?" What is your name? He says, "My Newman is Newman. Newman." And the German runs away. Yehuda Newman now has the shirt that's full of blood and the bullet hole, and he brings it back to the Polish, satisfied now that the German was dead. Fast forward. More than 20 years later, 1939. By that time, the Newman family, Yehuda Newman and his family, living in Germany, they are rounded up by the SS, by the Nazis, to be put on trains, heading, of course, back to Poland, towards the concentration camps. And just as Yehuda Newman is going on the train, he hears someone screaming, "Newman! Newman!" He looks, he's startled, he's astonished. Come here. He goes to the Nazi officer who's calling him. The Nazi officer looks and says, "Newman!" "You don't recognize me?" The forest, the shirt, the bullet, the blood. "Newman, you're not going on the train. You and your family are going to France instead." He signed the papers and sent them from death to life. The Newman family came to America, to New York, and Rabbi Yehuda Newman's son became the unforgettable, legendary Ramosha Newman, the principal of Beis Yaakov Academy in Queens, who educated thousands of Bnei Yisrael Jewish girls. All these girls that received their education, and then many of them married wonderful, wonderful husbands because of Yehuda Newman, his sensitivity, his compassion to another human being. Could you imagine the power of being compassionate to a fellow Jew? Putting aside differences, prejudice, bias. Making peace, caring, loving. Will turn everything around. Will bring us from a world of death and war to Mashiach. Because I have news for you. It's not Russia. It's not Hamas. It's not Al-Qaeda. It's not ISIS. It's not Hezbollah. It's not Iran that are our enemies. Our enemies are ourselves. We are our own worst enemy. Russia, Iran, Turkey, Hamas, Hezbollah, they're all puppets. That's all they are. We're the ones that will make the difference. When we get along, we bring a new world. The time is ripe now. The war is happening in front of our eyes. If every Jew alive today would say, I got it! I could make a difference! I'm just going to love unconditionally every Jew, not judge. Mashiach will come, guaranteed. But otherwise, more tragedy, God forbid, more suffering, more people in hospitals, more torment, more agony. It's up to us. It's your choice this Tisha B'Av. Choose wisely.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I would like to ask all of you, please, if you haven't done so already, please make a very gracious donation to BJX. It is a wonderful organization that inspires Jews, our brothers and sisters, throughout the world.